Oh, we're going to be talking about Elon Musk. So we got to play the Grimes coming in. I'm loving it. Oh, this was a good album. Okay, everybody, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Elon Musk has bought Twitter, $44+ billion. And you know, I've got my thoughts on Twitter, the type of content that's out there. I want to play you some audio here. Before we get to our next guest, I want to play you some audio about the type of content you see on Twitter. You know, I take aim at how toxic the site is, the bad tweets, the mean tweets, and then there's the other side of Twitter, which is the sort of like happy dumb tweets. You know, the happy dumb. Why'd you even tweet that? That's so happy and dumb. Have a listen to this. Daily Show correspondent Ronnie Chang taking aim at host Trevor Noah for tweeting "Happy Friday" to my followers.
All right, let's read this tweet. Wow, what an insightful tweet this is. Happy Friday to all my followers. Oh, wow. Thank you for this poignant message. What a modern-day Shakespeare. I wouldn't have thought of celebrating my Fridays until I read this.
It would make the people happy. It's just like, you know, it's like Happy Friday, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not what you do on Twitter, okay? Twitter is for hate. Okay, you don't post this stuff. You gotta be controversial. You should say something like Fridays are racist.
Okay, that's the most ridiculous thing. Fridays are not racist.
Now we're talking about it. See, it's engagement.
No, Fridays are not racist.
Fridays are racist. Yes, this powers me.
No,
yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Fridays are not racist. You can't just say
Fridays are racist. Engagement.
Engagement. Ronnie Chang from The Daily Show exclaiming at the end, engagement. Oh, it's all about engagement, specifically when you're a publicly traded social media company. No longer the case for Twitter. Well, most likely, as Elon Musk buying the site for $44 billion plus. A social media platform that boasts 270. Improve the app, introduce new features, option to edit your tweets. Here to tell us what he thinks about Ashkan Karbasfrooshan, founder of WatchMojo. Ash, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So, news happens. How will it play out?
I can't believe in a span of 10 days Elon Musk pulled this off. It's impressive, but I think it also speaks to how weak Twitter's board's hands were in this kind of, impasse. Because $50 or $44 billion is a lot of money. He's putting up about $20 billion through his own net worth, and lined up about $25 billion in financing. But it just goes to show that Twitter didn't really have much of an option because he offered them a price which was higher than Twitter's stock was ever at, except for one period last year when valuations had gotten out of hand. So once he lined up the financing, the intrinsic value of the platform was some $20 less than he offered. So the board didn't really have much of a choice in the end. Otherwise, shareholders would have revolted.
Yeah, basically a stock that's done nothing since its IPO. So what comes next?
Okay, so this is a very unique deal and very unique situation. Elon Musk is a very unique person, so you can't really kind of look at like the playbook or kind of say, well, Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post. Like none of that actually applies here. I came across, speaking of Twitter, an interesting tweet by none other than Walter Isaacson, who wrote the biography on Steve Jobs and many others, and he basically said that last night, after winning the battle for Twitter, Elon Musk was in Boca Chica and held his regular 10 p.m. meeting on engine design, et cetera, et cetera. Twitter didn't come up once, end quote. So my guess is he will actually be a bit more hands-on. He will be involved at Twitter. He will overhaul management. But I also think the risk of him getting bored is really high. He once said that, designing the Tesla was the easy part, but developing the systems and processes to scale production was 1,000 times harder. So I think similarly, it's very easy to talk about freedom of speech, even though Elon once canceled the Tesla order of a very popular venture capitalist who criticized a Tesla event. So you could take his love of free speech with a grain of salt. my guess is that like he'll have all these lofty ideas, but then once you get into the weeds of content moderation and policy and this and that, he will find Twitter not that entertaining, and then he'll have basically overpaid for something that he'll probably make better in some ways, but that he'll probably move on and go back to Mars and whatnot.
We're with Ashkan Karbasfrooshan, founder of WatchMojo. And Ash, for WatchMojo, you deal with this on a daily basis, dealing with algorithms, right? And what's YouTube's algorithm today? What's Facebook's algorithm today? How will it hurt or help us in any given day? And I know one of the focuses that Elon Musk, if you believe his words, is the algorithms, open sourcing them, making them more transparent. What are your thoughts on that part? And how does it get easier or harder now that the company will be a private company that doesn't necessarily need to chase quarterly results?
Well, the reality is Twitter has never really chased those quarterly results. I mean, it's a woefully under-commercialized platform. You know, it makes about $5 billion of revenue, so it sold for just under 10 times revenues, which is actually a pretty rich multiple, because this wasn't financial at all. It was really more ego, and it was more of a trophy, you know, the same way that very wealthy people, there's obviously an underlying business argument, but the people are driven by insecurities and envy and pride and whatnot. And, you know, this is really more about that than anything else, if we're going to be candid. But so what happens? Look, Elon Musk, to his credit, always was like, he did not start Tesla. He bought into Tesla and then took it over. So he was kind of very much about, I'm going to open source certain things because I believe in the greater good. And if everybody else, including Volkswagen and GM, starts to create EVs, we will benefit. The total pie grows, right? So I like that he's always been more focused on growing the size of the pie, and in that process, he also, you know, the value of his piece becomes more valuable. So that you got to give him credit. But, you know, I think Twitter has never really kind of focused on shareholder value, right? I mean, if you look at Snap, if you look at Facebook in particular, if you look at Google, those are, you know, hardcore for-profit capitalistic, you know, organizations where all they care about seems to be the bottom line. And sure, they're going to say nice things about, you know, giving back, but those are very much like the
Ash,
bottom line.
I get so many ads on Twitter. I think Twitter's issue is that they've been stuck in neutral on getting new people to the service.
Yeah, that and other ways of monetizing. I mean, clearly, Twitter could be a lot more aggressive in other ways, right? It's like they could go wider instead of deeper. It seems like they basically have 2 or 3 tricks, and they just have gone deep there, and that's why you see a ton of these promoted ads. But we'll see. I mean, look, I think a lot of this was Elon Musk not having that much more to prove with Tesla and other investments he has, and this was like the latest shiny object. And I'm not sure if he's going to be super leaning in and getting into the weeds. But I'm not sure if he's going to stay that interested, because this is boring stuff, you know? Like when I have conversations with YouTube about the latest algorithm policies and this and that, it's not that riveting, but it's really important.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the reality he's going to find himself in pretty soon.
Ashkan Karbasfrooshan is the founder of WatchMojo, based right here in Montreal. Ash, thanks so much for your insight. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.